Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Mommin'. I'm Megan.
And I'm Jessica.
It's Thanksgiving week. Happy Thanksgiving.
Woohoo! Yeah. Time for stuffing and turkey.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
not for you, for the turkey, but
No,
yes.
not the turkey. Yes. I
Yeah.
know we were thinking about ordering from a restaurant because we're not doing a big Thanksgiving this year, any of us, and we're all having separate little Thanksgivings, and I don't even eat turkey. So we're like, well, should we do a turkey? And our kids will certainly eat a lot. But then we are also like looking at restaurants to order, and if we ordered everything, it was like we were paying so much money for this big turkey that one adult would eat. So
So what are you doing for turkey? Or are you not?
we did buy a turkey,
Oh,
and I
okay.
figure we'll like maybe there's some neighbors who maybe will need some, or our kids eat
Oh,
plenty, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of people to feed.
yeah. You'll find ways. Yeah.
Yes.
That's true. Yeah, we weren't sure what to do either. I said to Sean, like, should we just do a good Thanksgiving breakfast instead? Because that seems way more manageable to me. Which is funny because we host Thanksgiving every year and that seems fine. But we were talking about it, and his point was, well, it feels fine because there's a build up and you have all these people over and it's fun and exciting. He's like, for just us, it feels a bit anticlimactic, but
Yeah, but it's also because you have people to help you with your kids while you cook then.
right. Yeah, it just feels like
It
a
is
lot. So,
different. Yeah.
so we landed on turkey, stuffing, and mashed potatoes, and that's it.
Hmm.
Oh, we bought rolls too.
Well, mom's making stuffing.
Yeah. So we're basically just doing the mashed
Oh.
potatoes. Turkey. I mean, anything beyond doing like the mashed potatoes and the turkey just felt like too much this year, which is funny because usually I'm like, oh, let's look at all these new sides that we could try.
I know.
Well, I hope it's better than our dinner last night. We had this meal so we weren't even gonna make this for dinner, but our groceries came early, and so I was like, Sean, let's scrap our plans and let's have this delicious it's like herb stuffed chicken and cauliflower mashed potatoes. It's delicious. We've had it before. It's so good. I mean, I swear to you, like the kids were inhaling the mashed potatoes and the chicken, and Truman does not like chicken usually.
Oh.
So we're so excited. And last time it took like 30 minutes. I don't know what the hell happened. It took me over an hour. Like Sean kept calling from upstairs, like, so what's your ETA? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what's happening up here. Like nothing. It was the worst meal. We couldn't even eat it. Like
Why?
the chicken was so chewy. I honestly felt like it was like what rawhide looks like for dog toys.
Oh.
You couldn't even chew it. The cauliflower mashed potatoes were like, thick and grainy and didn't taste. I don't know. I followed the recipe to a T. I have no idea what happened. And like
Did you make it last time?
yes,
Did
I'm the one
Sean
that made
make
it. So I have no,
it?
like, and it was so funny because Sean is like eating it, and I'm like, no, it's bad, and he's like, well, like it's just a little more different, it's just a little different. He's trying to be so nice, and by the end of the meal, he still has like a full plate, and he was like, yeah, this is just not good. Like, what happened? Like, being totally nice about it, and acknowledge. He's like, I really appreciate that you made the dinner. Like, did you miss a step or something? I don't know what happened.
Maybe you did.
I went back and looked. I mean, it's awful. Like the sauce is supposed to. Last time it got really thick and delicious, and this time it was like broth, and it was like 5 cups of it, whereas last time it was like half a cup. I don't
Did you
know.
double the recipe or
No,
something?
I don't.
Okay.
I mean, I guess I shouldn't say no because clearly something happened. I
Yeah.
don't I don't remember anything being a problem, but we have all this leftovers and we're like, well, I don't really know what to do with it because that chicken I can't even eat. It's really bad. It's real bad.
Oh, that's funny. Our house was chaotic last night because we both decided to make dinner at the same time, but different meals.
Oh,
Like
that's
we
helpful.
did Well, I thought it was a great plan because we got like we do like a meal delivery, and I said, why don't this week, this looks really good to me. And it was like tofu. And I said, what about you do this chicken? And Patrick, last night I was like, why don't we just make spaghetti? And then tomorrow night we can do that. We don't have much time. And he's like, no, I really want this. And then he's like, I'm kind of nervous. This says expert on it after he was in it already. And like the kitchen was crazy and I didn't even have a surface to cook on. And he was making like fried chicken, which I don't think he's ever made, and mashed potatoes, which I also don't think he's ever made. And I kept being like, is there a burner for me? Just one burner.
He used all
Because
the burners?
he had all four. No, he had three going at one point. And
Wait, why would you need 3 burners for
because
that?
he was making mashed potatoes, fried chicken, and then like a corn. And you should have seen him. It was so funny watching him. He was like frantically running around. And then he's like, are the potatoes ready? And I said, well, are they fork tender? And he's like, no, why aren't they ready? It said to half them. And I'm like looking, and I'm like, Patrick, it said to cut them into 1/2-inch cubes.
Oh. Oh, no.
And I said it said to simmer them. He's like, he had it on the lowest setting and the water was doing like almost nothing. And he's like, well, simmer doesn't mean boil. I was like, yeah, but it means like almost boiling. He's like, why does it not say that then? Because that's what simmer is.
Because it's an expert level. Oh my God,
So
that's
anyway,
funny. Was it good?
great for all of us. I don't know. I didn't
Oh,
eat
did
it.
he say it was good?
He said it was good. I think it's hard to really it's kind of like any meal. Well, unless yours might be just was really bad last night. But anytime I feel like you work really hard on it, it doesn't taste as good. It's like, wow, I did all of that.
See,
Like, I don't know, it's harder to enjoy.
yeah, no, it's not the same as when someone like presents it to you.
Hopefully your Thanksgiving dinner is better than that. But what we will be doing probably the night before and the night of Thanksgiving is watching the Modern Family Thanksgiving with the
Oh, the
multiple
turkey one.
houses.
I love that
Yeah.
episode. It's so good. The turkey in the suitcase is my favorite.
We should find which episode it was and put in the show notes in case anyone hasn't seen it
Oh,
because
it's
it's like
so
the
funny.
best. It's so funny.
I think
Hopefully we're not talking it up too much.
no, we bought it like on Amazon. Like we bought just that episode so we can have it every year.
We did
Yeah,
too.
it's so good.
Yep, so good.
It's so funny.
Well, with that, we hope everyone has a great Thanksgiving. Should we introduce Sarah?
Yes.
So this week we talked to Sarah Canney. She is the founder of Rise Run Retreat, which she started in 2015, and they sound like amazing retreats. She is also a mom of 3, and it was so much fun talking to her. We learned a lot about her and her family and how her business has grown and evolved. We really appreciate her time. We had a great time chatting with her, and we hope you enjoy our conversation.
Hi, Sarah. Thanks so much for joining us today on this episode of Mommin'.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, we're excited to talk with you. So we always like to get started with having our guests get to know you a little bit better. So if you're able to tell us what you do, where you live, about your family and yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Sarah, and I do many things, a lot of things. But I live in New Hampshire with my husband and our 3 kids. I love it in New Hampshire. I was born and raised here. Spent some time living outside of the state in Arizona, New York. But we found our way back here, and it's just a great place to raise a family. And if you love being outside, it's a fantastic place to live. So I live in New Hampshire, and I am the founder and host of a women's running retreat called Rise Run Retreat. And that really grew out of really a running blog that I started in 2009. And that sort of morphed over time into freelance writing for publications like Women's Running and Runner's World, then run coaching, and eventually starting the retreat. And that's what I do full time now is the retreat, but I also still do some running coaching as well. So yeah.
That's
awesome.
amazing. What an evolution
Yeah.
and a journey. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so
And there was
funny.
like a whole other lifetime before that as well. So
I'm sure.
That's so funny when you talk to people who've had like the phase 1 and then the phase 2. It's like we can't even go into phase 1. It was so long ago. But that's incredible. Can you, for people who don't know, give a little synopsis of what the retreats are and what they entail?
Yeah. I love describing the retreats because really started out as sort of like this heartfelt passion project, I guess you could call it, and has morphed into a sustainable business, which is really cool. But it really stemmed out of an experience that I had, a really powerful experience running with a group of women in a relay. And at the time, the experience was one that I had applied for. It was exclusively for bloggers with a brand. It was kind of this like brand blogger experience that they had set up. And I had a chance to go out to Oregon and run the Hood to Coast relay, which runs from Mount Hood to the Oregon coast. And that experience was just really powerful for me because it came at a time in my life where I don't think I was super confident. I really wasn't, didn't understand my strengths and my talents at all. And being in that group of women where I was encouraged and really inspired and was a huge boost for my confidence and made me realize how much stronger I was than I thought. And after I left that experience, I was obviously incredibly grateful to have been able to participate in it, but then just had this idea of like, well, what if I want to do that again? First of all, how can I do that again? And then, there weren't any other opportunities like that were coming down the pipeline. And so I thought, well, what if I make my own? And that's really kind of how the retreat started, was how can I sort of take that magic of that weekend where I felt so inspired and motivated and tapped into this aspect of myself I didn't really even know was there. How can I take that and recreate that for other women, make it available so it's not exclusively this like blogger thing that you have to apply for, but it's open to anyone and everyone. And so that's kind of how the retreat came about. And really, the retreat is a lot less about running and how many miles you run or how fast you run. It's really more about how has running fit into your life to be this thing that you love to do because it teaches you that you are strong and it helps you gain confidence and it gives you a more meaningful sense of self. And so that's kind of how the retreat came about. And it's a 4-day experience for a very small group of women. We keep our retreats limited to 15 people. And we bring in guest speakers and we run in beautiful, picturesque places and eat amazing food and connect with each other. It's really fun.
That's awesome. What type of places? I'm curious. Where have you held the retreat?
Yeah, so I'm committed to holding the retreat in New England. I'm from New Hampshire, obviously. I love this state. I love New England. And at the time when I started the retreat in 2015, there were really only maybe 2 or 3 other retreats, and they were located in Colorado, in Napa, and in the Pacific Northwest. And so it's like, okay, I felt like that area of the country was covered, and there really wasn't anything in New England. And so I felt like I really wanted to highlight this area. So we've always hosted our retreats in New England. We'll probably always continue to host our retreats in New England, even though we've been asked to come all over the country. And we've been in Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont in some just really gorgeous places. So,
Oh, I'm just envisioning how beautiful that must be to run there.
Mhm.
Wow, that's so incredible.
yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
And I'm guessing people would wonder because I would. I love running, but I'm a slow runner and I always have been. Do do you have to be at a certain level or is it for all levels? What does that look like?
It's for all levels. So that's one of the things that I probably get asked the most is, women saying, I really want to come, but I don't think I'm fast enough, or I'm afraid I'm going to run alone. And so, really my priority as the person organizing the event is that no one runs alone and everyone feels as if they're enough. So they walk through that door and they feel welcomed and they feel enough no matter what pace they run. And, I really try to encourage everyone who comes to really think of themselves as an athlete, regardless of how fast or slow you run, to recognize that you're committed to moving your body in this way. And that actually makes you an athlete. And so we divide into pace groups, and we kind of pair up or however group up according to what everyone runs. And usually I try to map out a route that allows us to kind of loop and circle back. And if people need to shorten the run, they have that option to shorten the run. So try to keep everything as flexible as possible to accommodate everyone.
Wow, I cannot imagine planning this. It's so impressive.
There's a lot of moving parts.
Yes. It's an undertaking. I love that you said, though, that you encourage everyone to think of themselves as an athlete, because I mean, running has, as you know, it's been a wave for me, but it has been a huge part of my life in parts. But even when I was like marathon training and at the height of my running, I was like, well, I mean, I'm training for this, but like, I'm not a runner. Like, I'm not, I'm not going to win or, qualify. So I think it's important, like you said, to say that, to recognize your own strength within that. And I think what a cool thing that you're emphasizing for people who might be scared to apply to come to one of these retreats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's really important. It's funny when I think about sort of my own evolution, as an athlete. In high school, I was like a student athlete, right? That's like an identity. A lot of us who played sports in high school, we had that, right? It was like, you're a student athlete. And then somehow like we weren't athletes anymore. Like when we graduated, and it's like, you can't be that anymore. I don't know. There was like some unspoken rule. And then I think when I first started running, I thought of myself as like, oh, I'm just a mom who runs. Like, I'm a mother runner. I'm just a mom who runs. And really, just a few years ago, I was like, well, for a mom who runs, I'm, dedicating a lot of time to this. And what if I did think of myself as an athlete? Like, what would happen? And actually, that mindset shift corresponded with some pretty significant like personal achievements in my running. So I think that's really powerful to think of yourself as an athlete. I mean, it can shift the way that you take care of your body. I mean, it can shift the way that you kind of view the food that you're putting in your body, or how you're, stretching, or, giving time to other areas that are going to support you as a runner. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of positive aspects of claiming an identity for yourself that you want. And I don't think there should be anyone out there telling you no.
Right. And it's not like there's a commission going around being like,
Right,
you
right.
you can't claim it.
Yeah, exactly.
Just,
And so if there isn't, then why not,
Yeah, love that.
What's your favorite race distance?
I don't know that I necessarily have a favorite distance, because I run on all different terrain. I mean, I run on the roads, I run trails and mountains, I snowshoe run. There's a lot of different things that I do. I think my favorite races just take me through just beautiful and challenging places, So as long as it's scenic, I think I'll race any distance. If it's not, then I'm not too keen on it, but yeah.
I like that approach.
Am I right that you've won some races in snowshoe running?
I have, yeah. I finished pretty high in snowshoe racing. That's kind of the discipline that I'd say I'm best at. Early this year, which feels like a lifetime ago, in 2020, I ran the World Snowshoe Championships and finished third.
Oh my gosh!
So that was kind of my biggest accomplishment so far. But yeah, and then I'm pretty competitive locally, and occasionally I'll snag a win at a local race. So
that's awesome. I love how you were like, yeah, I've done pretty well.
Yeah, third.
Just third.
I have to say, I didn't even realize snowshoe running was a thing. And all I'm picturing is like these huge up and downs. I can't wait to go Google this when we're done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like.
I mean, you run in a special running snowshoe, so it's considerably smaller, narrower, and more lightweight than a traditional sort of hiking or trekking snowshoe. But yeah, it's a fun sport, fun and unusual, and nobody's ever heard of it.
Okay, I feel a little less bad now. Wow, what a crazy accomplishment. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Wow. Switching back, one thing we always love to ask our guests is sort of how they built their family, and if they are comfortable talking about when their and their partner decided they wanted to have kids, and what that sort of looked like.
Yeah, it's interesting because our first was kind of a surprise. So we definitely we'd been married for 5 years, so we definitely were having the conversation of like, oh, maybe it's time to start a family. But at the time when I got pregnant with our first, um, it was like really bad timing because it was the the end of 2008. So it was like the economy had just crashed.
Mhm.
My husband was unemployed. We were sort of upside down on our house, our mortgage. And it was like exactly the time when you do not like you picture like, oh, we'll have the house and the jobs and everything will be, perfectly squared away and then we'll be ready. And it came at the time where it was like the antithesis of all of that. But it actually turned out to be the perfect, right? This is how life works. It turns out to be the perfect timing. She came along, Sophia. She was born right at the end of 2009. And then after that, we're like, okay, well, we're in it. We got started. We'll continue. And we kind of always knew like we wanted 3 kids. So that's what we have. We have a boy or a Sophia, and then we have 2 boys. So a girl and 2 boys, Jack and Liam, and they are currently 10, 8, and 5. So yeah, lots of fun.
Wow.
Yeah. Did you feel pretty certain after your second, like we're still having a third?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. And then once I was pregnant with our third, then I was like, oh crap, I can't do this.
I've heard that a lot.
But it's like, can I do it now?
Oh wow. Yeah. Have had that thought.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so there's definitely a lot of prenatal anxiety that I actually really struggled with and ended up going back to therapy for because it was just the idea of having, because 2 was hard. Like always the transition from 1 to 2 is really difficult. And then, I just kept thinking like, oh my gosh, I don't think I can handle 3. But then the third is always not as hard as going from 1 to 2. So it ended up being okay.
It all worked out. Yeah.
Yes. What has been the most surprising part of having kids for you?
I don't know. I mean, I think for me, I think the surprising part was like once we finished potty training our third. So once we're like out of the potty training phase, I've kind of been surprised at how quickly it feels like time is going now, because I feel like up until that point, it just felt like, especially if you're nursing and potty training and like doing a million different, you've got like those when they're really little and so much of your time and your energy and effort is child care. It just feels like it's never going to end and it's going to be that way forever. And I think so. The most surprising part for me now, I think, has been just how time has sort of all of a sudden accelerated. It's like once our youngest turned like 3.5, 4, it was like, we're on fast forward now, it feels like. So I think that's been kind of surprising because early on you think, wow, this is going to last forever.
Yes, you do. In it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have a 10-year-old girl. So what are the challenges of someone?
Almost
Oh my
11,
gosh.
11 next month.
So like preteen, that seems
Mhm.
so far away. My daughter's 4.5. So that seems like light years from
Mhm.
now, although it's going quickly, like you just said. What are the challenges, or what are the pieces that you're going through with having a daughter that age?
Yeah, I mean, I think the hardest part right now is like you can definitely tell that hormones are starting to like flow a
Uh-huh.
little bit. And so navigating that, like the explanation of like, well, there is no explanation. I'm so sorry that you feel like crying right now. Just how it's gonna
And it never
be
goes
for the rest
away.
of your life. Yeah. So it's just kind of explaining like when there's frustration and not understanding like why she's frustrated or why she feels emotional, and like how do you explain that to someone who's 10 or 11, can be a little bit challenging. And I think too, just we have a pretty firm boundary around screens and devices, and always have. So navigating that when peers and their families have very different boundaries when um, can be difficult because it's like there's this feeling of being left out because I don't have a phone, and that kind of thing has been a little bit challenging, and I think it's only going to get more challenging, as she gets older. So I think that can be a point of contention, but
Oh,
so far, I mean, I think we've been relatively
yeah.
unscathed. I don't know, fingers crossed
Yeah.
so far. And, I think as long as we keep like the avenues of communication as open as possible, I think the more smooth these sort of transitions can be.
Yeah. It
So.
sounds like you and her have a pretty strong relationship. Does she come to you and
Mhm.
say, like, Mom, why am I feeling this way? Or Mom, what's this about? Like, or do you just sense it and see it?
I think a little bit of both. And she's also really close with her dad too, so they have a really, really close relationship which is great. And so she feels comfortable. She has sort of like more like questions and philosophical discussions with my husband, and then with me, it's more like the emotional side of things. So, but yeah, I think that's really the foundation, and it hasn't. I mean, she and I are always similar, and I feel like with your first child, you always like royally screw up. So in terms of like you're just like you have no idea and you're figuring things out. So I would say it hasn't like always been perfect or good or in a good place as it in the way that it is now. But we've found our way to a good place. So
I love
That's
that.
great. I'm scared
Yeah.
for those years. I'm curious with, with the 3 kids, how did you decide, like, "Yes, I'm going to start this endeavor," and how did you and after you started it, how have you guys made it work as a family?
Yeah, it's interesting. Because so my daughter Sophia and I went for a walk yesterday, and we were remembering some of the babysitters that they've had, and kind of going through the list of babysitters, and remembering which ones they liked and which ones they didn't like. So obviously that was a part of it was finding childcare, but I think initially the everything was sort of I didn't set out to start a retreat in the very beginning. It was sort of a natural progression of like, okay, I started writing about my running, and then I started writing about running for other publications, and then started having these experiences and meeting other people in the running community and sort of getting more involved. So that was sort of this like natural progression. And then the kids and the running, I mean, it was all kind of sort of flowed naturally because that's just who I am. And, for a long time I ran with a double stroller and then a triple stroller. And, the kids were always kind of part of it. And
A triple stroller.
but it,
I'm
but
like, "I don't know
it,
about that one."
yeah, it didn't, it's funny because it was such a short window of time that I needed the triple stroller. So it really wasn't like that impressive.
You are absolutely a runner. Yeah.
But, yeah, I think just finding a way, it was a lot of, like, early mornings and late nights and, like, squeezing stuff in when I could. I've obviously, as the kids have gotten older, sort of my bandwidth to be able to do more things has expanded, and so sort of what you're seeing now is the product of, like, lots of, like, snippets of, like, 20 minutes and 45 minutes and, like, little grabs of time over the past 10 years, really. I mean, since my daughter was born. And so it's not like it all it all like came together at once. It's just kind of slowly built. And we're at a point now where actually my husband is the primary caregiver, stay at home parent. We switched roles last year. And so we also homeschool. Well, we have homeschooled from the very start. So that's sort of like another piece that that he's taken over, which has allowed me to sort of build into my business more and do more things. So
what was that transition like where when he took over? Were the kids on board with it, or how did that go over?
yeah, I mean, it's interesting because so my husband and I have both always been self-employed. So he is a plumbing contractor and had his own business, but has also have had some health issues that was making managing that business really difficult and working really difficult. And so we kind of came to a place where we decided we were going to go for it and see if I could sort of build my business up to support our family. And if, and he's kind of always wanted to stay home and be the stay-at-home parent. It's funny because I joke that like he's always wanted to be a Pinterest mom. He makes the birthday cakes, like he rolls out the fondant and he like makes these elaborate birthday cakes for the kids. And like, so it was like he was sort of like made for this stay-at-home parent role. And I love to work. Like I like that. And so we switched roles last October actually. So it's been about a year, and the kids were super excited. Like they love dad. Dad's fun. And dad like is, in terms of, I think for such a long time I was trying to do too much really. Like, and so when I was with the kids, I wasn't totally present. And, so I think they were excited that they're like, oh, he's here physically and mentally. But so it was interesting though, because right at the beginning, I would kind of come into like my office, which is corner of our bedroom and work. And the kids were still coming in to say like, Mom, can you pour me a glass of milk? Or like, Mom, can you, and like your dad is like sitting out there.
I don't know.
He's 100% capable of also getting you a glass of milk.
Oh my God.
But since then, we've settled into just a really nice groove of how the family kind of works, and it's been good.
Oh, that's so great.
And you have a background as a teacher, correct?
Yeah. So I was a high school English teacher before I kind of transitioned to staying at home.
How did you guys make that decision to homeschool? What did that look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting because it's something my husband has always wanted to do. And I was actually homeschooled from kindergarten to 8th grade. So I have that experience. And it was actually one of the things that sort of inspired me to go into teaching because I had just a really great experience. But I never thought that I would homeschool my own kids, quite honestly, because I just didn't think I would. I didn't think I wanted to. And we just kind of decided, okay, well, let's get started with it, and we'll do the first few years at home and see how it goes. And we did, and we like it, and we love the freedom and the flexibility. And obviously, during this particular time, it has been to our advantage that we homeschool and we have that experience. And so, honestly, our lives haven't been disrupted like some people have over the past year. And that way our kids have had a relatively smooth 2020. And I think for them sort of that's nice. It's nice that it's been that way. It's a huge privilege, but it's been nice. And so we like that. We like just the flexibility and every Thursday is like our family day where we go for a hike or we go out and we do something. And just being able to like decide what our schedule is going to be is we feel like is just a huge advantage.
That is absolutely.
Yeah.
And like you said, that they haven't had the disruption that other kids have. Like that has to be so helpful. Do you guys do like, I know some homeschool parents do like pods or like little collaborations?
Yeah.
Or...
We have been in a couple different homeschooling co-ops and participated in a bunch of different things. Obviously, a lot of that stuff is not happening right now just because of what's going on with the pandemic. But yeah, and then there's tons of different homeschool activities. Like we actually just signed up for homeschool ski school. So there's all kinds of different things. There's a homeschool actors guild in our area. There's a lot of resources. For a while, the kids took a science class at our local children's museum.
Oh, wow.
That was specifically for homeschooled kids. So in this area in particular has a really strong homeschooling community. And once you tap into it, the the possibilities of what you can do are pretty endless. So
That's really
it's nice.
cool. It sounds like they're getting
Yeah.
opportunities that they would never get in like a traditional environment, which is also pretty
Yeah.
neat.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I'll acknowledge that this is a pretty loaded question, but any tips for people who are homeschooling right now? Any like big, like one
Yeah.
thing? Like, I
Yeah.
don't even know how that's possible, but
Yeah. No, I mean, and that's a question that we've been asked, I think, because so many people have sort of been thrown into it. And the answer that both myself and my husband always give is to really focus on two things. Focus on your kids feeling encouraged. And if they're feeling encouraged, then they're going to feel confident. And if they're feeling confident, then they'll feel curious. So if you can focus on confidence and encouragement, and instead of like, what are we getting done today? Or what level are you at academically? There'll be a lot less conflict if you can just focus on encouragement and confidence. And I think sometimes, well, not sometimes, a lot of times that comes through connection, right? So if your child feels a strong connection to you, if they feel that you're engaged and that if they feel seen and heard and loved, then they're going to feel encouraged. Then they're going to feel confident, curious, and then the learning can naturally happen after that. So I think that that's the big thing is like be connected so that your kids can feel encouraged, and then, really focus on keeping them encouraged and confident, because obviously like school's tough, right? If you're just learning how to divide long division and like your brain is like trying to figure out this thing that you've never done before, and it's frustrating, right? And it can be really discouraging, and it can deflate your confidence. And so if you can really focus on, well, what can I do to help my kid feel encouraged? What can I do to help my kid feel confident? Then the learning just naturally flows out of that. And it doesn't have to be this battle of like, you've got to get this done, kind of thing. So, so I think, yeah, that's my big blanketing advice.
I mean, that's great.
I mean, homeschooling is like a very detailed, complex sort of idea, but that would be, I would say, focus on that.
Yeah,
that's good advice.
I mean, that's beautiful, really. Yeah.
This is a selfish question because I'm trying to do like a loose structure program with my, like I said, 4.5-year-old, and she loses interest like 5 minutes in. How do you go about, or how would you recommend keeping your kids engaged? Or is it okay to say, okay, let's stop and move on to something else?
Yeah, I would say at that age, you just answered your question. Like, it's okay to stop and move on to something else. I mean, so our youngest is 5, and there's a huge sort of attention and comprehension difference between age 4 and age 5. Like, there's a big one. And so I would say last year at age 4, he was like, maybe he could sit down for 20 minutes and do something, and then he was up and he was gone, and wanted to do Legos or wanted to play. And I feel like 100% okay. Like, Legos are great. Like, playing with blocks is great. Like, playing is a form of learning. It's a form of, them trying to figure things out. And so, yeah. So I think being flexible, especially with those ages, and even now, at 5, he is sitting and focusing on work for considerably longer, like 3 times longer than he was last year. But then there's still like, he needs some frequent breaks and to break it up. But I think, yeah, the more flexible you can be, the less battles there will be.
I can't tell you what a weight that is off my chest, because every day I'm like, at daycare, I saw them, they were sitting down, but she had a whole group of people there, and like, they're teachers.
Yeah.
I am not. So thank you. That is incredibly helpful to hear. Absolutely.
So shifting gears a little bit, if you're comfortable talking about this, looking at your social media and your blog, you've been very open about your past with an eating disorder. And I'm wondering if you're willing to share your journey with us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It is something that, that I am open with, mostly because I feel like when I was struggling, there weren't a lot of stories out there of recovery. And so it was kind of this thing where you just like suffered in silence, really. And so I was diagnosed with anorexia when I was 18. But really sort of the dieting, restrictive, disordered thinking and behavior had started long before that, probably when I was 12, 13, like right before going into high school, and just sort of escalated slowly over high school. And then by the time I hit my freshman year of college, it had really sort of exploded into a problem. And from there I entered outpatient treatment. My parents became aware of the issue, and they were very supportive and really, tried to help me in every way that they could. My friends were an extended family were super supportive of as well. And I think because I'm sort of like type A people pleaser, heading into treatment, the treatment team is like, well, you have to gain X amount of weight and you have to do XYZ. And so I was like, okay, I'll do that. And so I did, and was kind of out, graduated from outpatient treatment by the end of the summer. The problem was that that's really when my struggle with bulimia started. So it was like on the outside, I looked like I had recovered. I looked better, quote unquote better, but really the eating disorder had just sort of morphed and changed into a new one. And and then I went on to struggle with bulimia until I was 28. And just really kind of a really dark time, a really difficult time, but obviously life was still sort of happening. I, met my husband. We were married in that 10-year time frame. And, it was really the finding out that I was pregnant with my daughter in that sort of unexpected way that really was a catalyst for me finally changing. And all through those 10 years, I was seeing a therapist. I was still sort of in active recovery, trying to get better, trying to not be bulimic anymore, but just in this cycle that I couldn't break. And I really think that sometimes, the longer that you're in an eating disorder, the more it starts to function as an addiction. And so I actually went through a 12-step program a little bit later on, and that was really helpful for me. And it was like each time I went through either therapy or a different group therapy or programs, I was like I would get a little bit better, have a few more tools to kind of handle things, but then would kind of just slide back and just stay in this destructive behavior pattern that I just couldn't break. And so I think it was finally when I found out I was pregnant with Sophia, I can just remember thinking, I didn't know I was having a girl, but I just kept thinking like, I don't want this baby inside me. And I felt strongly that it was a girl. I don't want her to be negatively affected by this, right? There's a million things that can go wrong when you're pregnant, right? It's like always a miracle that a baby comes out in one piece. And, I was just thinking like this eating disorder could cause harm. It could, it could really mess things up. And I don't want that. I want this baby inside me to be healthy and whole. And I want to give her the best chance possible to survive. And, I think in grappling with that, like this deep sort of love and connection that I felt to the baby inside me, I really realized like, wow, if I want the best for her, if I want to honor this life, if I want to nourish this life, if I want to love this life, then I actually have to do that for myself first. I have to honor myself first. I have to nourish myself first. I have to love myself first, because this baby is inside my own body, right? If I don't first take care of myself, then none of that is going to get to the life that's inside me. And so it was that realization that really kind of was the end of the behavior. So I just stopped binging. I stopped purging. And I can't say I stopped binging. I stopped purging. And it took a while. It took several months before I stopped binging. And that was a difficult time to try and kind of navigate that. But yeah, and then, I sort of made this strange bargain with myself where I said like for 9 months, I'm not going to purge at all. And if I get to the end of 9 months and like baby is born and I want to like go back to that, then okay, I can. But after 9 months, I got to the end of 9 months, and there had been a lot of healing, emotional and physical healing that had happened where I was like, I don't want to go back to that. Like,
Mhm.
actually, I'm doing way better now, And
Yeah.
so, because I think for me, the bulimia was always sort of this way of like managing my weight. And, I just kind of thought that I was like, well, if I still want to manage my weight in this way after the baby, then okay. But when I got to the end, it was like of that 9 months, it was like I didn't want that anymore. So that first pregnancy was really kind of a healing time for me personally, and really kind of a major catalyst for my recovery.
Wow.
That's
Were there oh, go ahead, Jen.
no, I was just gonna say that's such an incredible journey that you've been
Mhm.
on with that, and then that realization that you just said, that I mean, that's such a profound realization of you needed to take care of yourself first.
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
Mhm.
that's
Yeah,
just incredible, and I'm
yeah,
so glad you were able to do that.
Mhm.
That's hard. That's really
yeah.
hard. Yeah.
I think it's a hard concept for every woman, and I think it's something that we all struggle to comprehend is like the truth that we have to take care of ourselves first. Like, we have to honor ourselves first. We have to nourish ourselves first. So much of our time and energy and effort is spent in honoring everybody else's needs and nourishing everybody else and taking care of everybody else. And so we just keep pouring out, and eventually we're just like dry, right? Because we have nothing to give from. And so I think it's so important to really flip that and say, well, actually, no, we need to do that for ourselves first, because then there's so much more for us to give to everyone around us.
There's so
Absolutely.
much to that too. Like I think it's we are taught that like just through society and probably how our own moms cared for us so
Mhm,
lovingly
mhm,
and probably put us first, but I had recently read how that's then we're teaching our daughters that and we might be teaching our sons that that's what
mhm,
if they marry a female, like what their spouse should be. And that's
mhm.
not helping anyone. And you're right, you're pouring from an empty cup, and that's also not
Right.
helping
Yeah,
anyone in the
yeah.
first
I
place.
also blame that book, The Giving Tree.
I don't know the giving tree.
It's awful. We were gifted it and I threw it away. It's terrible. It's all about this tree and about this little boy, and the little boy just takes and takes, and literally he like at the end he grows up and he doesn't have money for a house, so the tree's like, "Oh, you can chop me down and use my wood." And it's like, "You
What's
killed
the
the
moral of the
tree."
story?
Yeah, the tree gives everything. It's the worst one. But it's the complete antithesis of what you just said of like you have to
Yeah,
heal yourself or there's nothing.
yeah.
What an incredible journey. So did you prior to that, did you feel like there was anything that was really helpful to you, or was that do you think anything else would have helped you get to that point of no, I'm going to put myself first and I'm going to work on
Mhm.
healing myself?
Yeah, I think, anytime you're sort of, if you're a friend or a loved one of someone who is struggling with either an eating disorder or addiction or something else like that, it's a hard position to be in because the person who's struggling is not going to change unless they decide to change, right? And so, you know, yes, part of it was this like moment where I decided I'm going to change, but it was also 1,000 moments before that where I also decided to change. And so, I think it was just kind of the adding up of the work that I had done, right? The outpatient treatment, all those hours of therapy, the 12-step program, it was all those things like those are the precursor to that final moment. So it was kind of a little bit of everything, and it was all the people who were supporting me, the people who were trying to keep me accountable and who were loving me and trying to help me. That was a huge part of it too. So it wasn't just that one moment. It was a lot of little moments that sort of went into it.
Wow.
Yeah. It sounds like it's one of those hard things where as much as when we see someone we love in a situation like that want to do something, it sounds like it's we can only do so much. Was there anything that your parents or those who love you did that was helpful or hurtful, or was it like you said, just you had to get there?
Yeah, I mean, I think, just, probably the most helpful for me was just feeling loved and not feeling shamed, right? There's so much shame that's associated with an eating disorder. It was like I was heaping enough shame on myself that to have the people who were surrounding me just accept me unconditionally was really helpful. So I think that's one thing that can be really helpful. And, from time to time, there were people who, like my husband, who was like, I want better for you, and kind of in a loving, confrontational way, was like, come on, Sarah, like, come on, Sarah. But, so it was kind of a little bit of everything. Like it's at different points, you need different things. What's tough is that as someone who is standing on the outside, you never know what that person needs, right? Do they need
Mhm.
a little bit of of accountability and, for lack of a better term, tough love? Or do they need just unconditional? I mean, I would hope that unconditional acceptance would be sort of the underlying
Mhm.
Mhm.
thing, everything that you do to try to support somebody. But yeah, it's hard to know. And so I think, in terms of advice for people who are in that position, a loved one or a friend watching someone else struggle, I think one of the best things that you can do for yourself is actually seek some counseling and therapy for yourself. That way you're feeling supported, because it can be a really draining position to be in. And I think it's important that you work with a professional to sort of work through your own thing, and then also get advice from them as to how to deal with the loved one or the friend.
It's great advice. Yeah, because someone from that
Yeah.
position, yeah, it's like you said, it's hard to know, and you have to take care of yourself too, in addition to supporting
Mhm.
that person.
One other question about this, and I don't want this to sound insensitive, because I do think eating disorders can be very similar to something like depression or anxiety, where it's not like something necessarily happened in your life that
Mm.
caused that. But is there anything that you're doing the best you can to either give your kids tools, so if they do have those feelings, they can manage them, or just being like body positive yourself? Anything that you've consciously done?
Yeah, yeah, there are a few things. So, one of them is like we just don't have any rules around food, in terms of cleaning your plate, or, forcing our kids to try things, that kind of thing. So, very much try and let our kids be intuitive eaters. And that even goes for right now, Halloween candy, right? We actually don't limit how much Halloween candy that they can have. It sits on the counter, they eat it when they want it. And if they feel sick afterwards, that's a natural consequence. The only thing that we insist on is that they have to brush their teeth, right? So, but just having everything sort of be, there's no good or bad food. There's no clean or unclean food. Just what kind of watching our language around that is really important. Obviously, the person doing the grocery shopping is the gatekeeper, right? So it's, if you're the one who's bringing in the food. And so we just try to bring in food that is accessible, available all the time, without any rules around it, other than where you can eat it, like no food in the living room, that kind of thing. We've got rules around where you eat the food, but no rules about the quantity or what it is. And then I think the other thing too is just being careful not to comment on outward appearance. So, I think one of the things that sort of bothers me is if we go out and, some random stranger will say oh, your daughter's so beautiful. She's so beautiful. Or and that's nice, but we really should be commenting on something other than the way we look. And so trying to do that with our own kids as well. And so I think those are some of the things that we focus on is, you know, keeping food really neutral, and also just trying to shift the conversation away from appearance to, how are you feeling? Like, you look excited today, or, that kind of thing.
Mhm. Oh, I love
Yeah.
that. I really love that.
Yeah, it's hard as a parent because like you say, "Oh, you look so beautiful," like you said, but
Mhm.
trying to shift that into positive traits that they have, it's so important. But I
Mhm.
think that's how we all grew up too. It was such a focus of, "Oh,
Yeah,
you're such a pretty girl or
yeah.
handsome boy," and it's sort
Mhm.
of as these
Yeah,
generational shifts happen, it's like, "Oh, yeah, we need we need to do better. Like we can do better."
yeah, yeah, and, that's one of the things I can remember growing up is, like, that at my grandparents' house or something like that, like, the comments were always around sort of weight and appearance and, like, "Do you look healthy? Do you look not healthy?"
Mhm.
It was always sort of centered around that, so
Right.
Mhm.
trying to shift away from that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I hope we're all shifting away from that. I feel like
Yeah.
that's kind of happening, but I hope that continues to be the
Mhm.
direction that we're all going in.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, we are going to sort of give you a bunch of quick questions. Don't have to be long responses. Just sort of the first thing that comes to your mind, answer if you're ready for some kind of rapid fire,
Mhm.
I guess.
Yeah.
So what is a goal that you have for you and your family, both like in the near and far term?
Oh, we, actually we would love to do some RVing around the country,
Ooh.
so that's kind of on our family bucket list, and, yeah, I'm not sure when it was kinda supposed to happen this summer, we were supposed to do this kind of, like, trek across Arizona, Utah, Colorado, like, up to Montana, and that didn't happen, but, it's definitely a goal that we have is to do some RVing before the kids get big,
That's
really big.
awesome.
I
Yeah.
never thought that would sound good, but lately I've been
Yeah.
like, "That
I know.
sounds fun." And then what is something or what are some things you do to take care of yourself or to help yourself unwind?
Yeah, so, every morning I get up and I journal. That's, like, a big part of sort of my morning routine. I journal and, try to meditate. Sometimes the meditation part doesn't fit in, but always the journaling. And then I run, which is sort of another form of like moving meditation. So yeah, really running and journaling are kind of my two things.
I love
Yeah.
that. Do you get up before the house gets up to journal?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Oh.
What is your favorite parenting tip or piece of advice or parenting or like a product that's been helpful as a parent?
Hmm. I don't know that there's a product that's been helpful. Well, I did love my Bob running stroller. That was like a
The double or
lifesaver.
the triple?
Yeah.
The double.
Okay.
The double. Yeah, the double bob stroller was or did I have I had a Thule, Thule makes a really great double stroller, so, yeah, we'll say that.
Okay.
Awesome. I was gonna ask you which brand earlier, so I'm glad you brought it up. What would you say is the best part of being a parent for you, or one of the best parts?
I think it's, like, the snuggles. I don't know, like, and, my youngest is still super snuggly, like, whenever we sit down to watch TV as a family or anything like that, he always just crawls right into my lap, and the other 2 don't do that anymore, so I'm not really sure how much longer that's gonna last, but yeah, the snuggles.
Yes, that's the best. And is there a mom out there who inspires you?
I don't know that there's, like, a specific mom that I can think of who is, an inspiration, but I honestly, like, I find so much inspiration from entrepreneurial-minded moms, like, women who are moms, but they're also, like, just kicking butt in their business. I think Sarah Blakely actually is, like, super cool. She's the founder of Spanx,
Yes.
and she's got 4 kids and, like, seems super down to earth and, like, chilled out, but she's also really very ambitious business owner, and so, yeah, I think women who are out there who are doing, just taking whatever dream or idea that they have and actually, like, making it happen, I think is so cool because your kids get to watch you, like, build this thing from scratch that is creating wealth for your family, but it's also employing other people and, like, creating wealth for their families, and, like, I just think that's so cool.
That's awesome. So true. Yeah.
Yes, yes, we clearly feel the same way. We keep getting to interview, like, just amazing moms and women like yourself, and it has been so fun and so inspiring.
Yeah.
It's just awesome. And women who are supporting other women too, which is
Mhm.
great.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's
Yeah,
huge.
it is. It's this, I think mothers are just this wonderful, unique, loving community, the ones that we've spoken to at least, and hopefully more in general, but it's just always surprising to me how supportive they are of each other or that we've encountered, and just what a wonderful thing that is. It's just beautiful.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, this is a hard one because it has been for many people, but do you have a funny or cute kid story that you want to share?
That is a hard one because it's like, well, which one? I don't know. It's funny because like Facebook always pops up and reminds you of like, oh, 4 years ago, this memory happened, and the ones that were popping up into my feed were from this week were from Halloween just a few years ago, and there was one where my son Jack, who was I guess he was 4 at the time, and then Liam was 2. We had buried Jack in the leaves, and we were asking Liam, like, "Where's Jack? Where's Jack?" And Liam, in his little 2-year-old voice, says, "Dak, Dak." And Jack pops out of the leaves, and Liam is like, his face is like he's a ghost, like, but then he thinks it's hilarious, so he's like super surprised, and then he's like running away, and the way a little 2-year-old runs, with their little legs, and Jack is like chasing after him, all covered in leaves, and I don't know, it's just a sweet, And then I showed it to the boys, and they were like, "That's us," and they thought it was hysterical. So, I don't know. I mean, there's tons of little things like that, right? That you just those fun little memories that you look back on and make you smile.
Oh,
Absolutely.
I love that. The little 2-year-old voice and the
I
little
know, I
2-year-old
Yeah.
run.
know, I
Oh.
know. Yeah, when you have, like, all those little things that they say, I can remember we remember Sophia's little things, I think the best, but she used to call strawberries tie-bye-byes, and, just little stuff like that, like, they come out with these little isms that are just their
Mhm.
language for a short period of time, and it's like, just you and your kids know
Yeah.
it, and
Yes.
but then it kinda sticks with you and you remember, "Oh, tie-bye-byes."
That's so cute.
Oh, I just wanna bottle that all up.
I know.
Well, Sarah, this has been incredible, and we appreciate your time and your honesty and sharing all of your experiences. It's been really amazing talking to you.
Yeah, well, this has been a super fun conversation, so thanks for having me on.
Yeah,
Yes.
and tell people how they can find you before we wrap up.
Yeah, so you can find me on my website, which is sarahcanney.com. That's SARAHCANNEY.com. And then I'm on all the social media platforms, but I hang out the most on Instagram, and that's at sarah.canney.
Awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking some time to chat with us. It's been so fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. If you have time, we would love it if you would leave us a rating and review. Remember to subscribe so you always get updated about the recent episodes. If you enjoyed this episode, we would love it if you would also share it with a friend. You can find us at momandpodcast.com, at Mom and Podcast on Instagram, and our Mom and Podcast Facebook group. Thanks so much for listening.